NBC6 South Florida is everywhere.
Sweeping changes in classrooms across South Florida this year. From kindergarten to high school, classwork will be tougher.
The standards are much more rigorous.
The new state assessment expected to be harder, too.
We need to brace ourselves for this next transition.
It's an educational transformation that's supposed to prepare our kids for the jobs of tomorrow. It will impact everything from the types of stories kids read to the number of subjects taught.
Now, what you need to know to keep up with these new academic expectations. And I'm Adam Cooperstein. Welcome to Education on 6. Tonight we've got the scoop on everything from free homework help to a preview of a test that's replacing the FCAT. In fact, we're going to be showing you some of the sample test questions during the show to see how you do.
Now, let's start with the massive changes underway and how children are being taught. It's a controversial topic we've been hearing about for years, Common Core.
Yeah, you may have already heard it means covering fewer topics while digging deeper, much deeper into subjects. But Team 6 education reporter Ariadza explains it's much more than that.
It started out as a benign attempt to uniformly raise standards in the nation's public schools, but the Common Core curriculum has become an emotional issue. Most of the country, all of these yellow states you see here, adopted the standards in 2010, although a few have since backed out under political pressure. Florida signed on, but added a few things, cursive writing, for instance, and tougher calculus benchmarks, and rebranded Common Core as the Florida standards. Here's what it means for you.
So all of these systems that we're going over have to work together.
And that, in a nutshell, explains the Florida Standards curriculum, making sure students can think critically and analytically to connect the dots between everything they're learning.
I think that the standards now will prepare our children for the workplace in a much different way. If you look at jobs that existed 10, 15 years ago that are no longer in existence.
And what was interesting about that shark?
From the earliest grades through high school, students will find the new curriculum more rigorous, but hopefully, educators say, more engaging, as analytical thinking is emphasized over just memorizing facts.
So we're moving away from a world where students memorize content and they fill out multiple choice question. In this world, you're not only going to have to know your content, can you apply what you know to solve real-world problems?
What is a good solution to this problem?
Broward and Miami-Dade schools have been easing into the Common Core curriculum for the past 3 years, preparing for this year when the standards take full effect.
I like to count.
And yes, Common Core and the Florida Standards are the same thing, rebranded, some say, for political reasons.
The standards are consistent from school to school, and they match up against international standards, too.
The Common Core standards were developed a few years ago by a bipartisan group with the goal of raising standards nationwide. Most of the country is using it, but even though some prominent Republicans like Jeb Bush strongly support Common Core, it's become a target of some conservatives who say it's a federal takeover of their state's schools.
We are dealing with evil.
Several governors have signed laws blocking Common Core, while our local superintendents support the new curriculum.
They're going to have to think more than they are in that first task.
Miami-Dade schools held workshops over the summer to prepare teachers and principals for the brave new world they're facing.
We're transitioning from the teacher in front of the classroom to the teacher in the middle of the classroom surrounded by students who are engaged, a teacher who recognizes not just where the entire group of students are doing, but recognizing pockets of underperforming students.
Dr. Angela Salmon of FIU studies education trends and says Common Core will train kids to think, which is what the jobs of tomorrow will require.
Good thinkers are good problem solvers. They are independent learners. Information is no longer a priority. Now, with the click of a finger, you can find all the information in your iPhone.
The big mystery at this point is the assessment test. No one, including teachers, knows what's replacing the FCAT because the state hasn't released it yet.
7.
You got it.
Like many parents, Julie Garcia is worried about her children facing something completely new.
They can understand it, they can comprehend it, they have enough time to finish it.
The new assessment test will be harder. That's something all the educators agree on, so don't be surprised if school grades drop.
What's been your favorite part of the day? Lunch.
Scott Saperstein is an elementary school principal.
Good teaching goes a long way and in preparing our students for whatever the test looks like.
Is it unfair that you're being asked to prepare for a test that nobody's seen yet?
Personally, I believe so.
Teachers and students will have to adjust on the fly. Robert Runcie says don't whine about it, just get the job done.
It's going to be a different ball game. It will be a lot more challenging. I would suggest to our students that, yeah, you're going to get some challenging work, but there's nothing wrong with that.
So get ready for what might prove to be an assessment test which is harder than the FCAT was. New York, for example, saw a 30% drop in test scores when it first adopted a new Common Core assessment. That's why Florida's superintendents are asking the state to give them a transition period until everyone's up to speed before the new assessment counts. Jackie and Adam?
A lot of concerns, a lot of questions. Good to get some answers. Ari, thank you.
I'm sure the debate will continue on Common Core.
Yep, but it's here to stay, so we got to figure it out now, right? When we come back, schools competing with each other to attract new students.
How schools are working harder to cater to students' career dreams.
And the big push to get students to pursue science and technology, why some say it's paying off bigger paychecks and job security.
But first, can you answer this question? Two fractions with different denominators have a sum of 7/12. What are the two possible add-ins that result in this sum? We'll give you a few seconds to figure it out. Believe it or not, this is a 5th grade question. This comes from the practice exam for the state's new assessment test. Think you know it? If you said 5/12 and 1/6, you're correct. Growing number of charter schools. Families have many more choices when it comes to finding the right fit. One result of that tougher competition, South Florida's public schools are creating more programs that tailor curriculum to students' career dreams. This year alone, Miami-Dade started 20 new magnet programs. The district now has 461 of these choice programs, and there are 125 in Broward. Students are learning everything from computer coding to sports medicine, and some will even earn certifications in their field of study.
This country is moving away very swiftly from a manufacturing assembly line model of education where one size fits all. It's becoming more personalized in terms of teaching approach, in terms of academic offerings, and that competition makes us better.
Now, many of these new choice programs focus on STEM subjects. STEM stands for science, technology, engineering, and math.
And this building right here is evidence of the increased focus on STEM across the state. This is Polytechnic University. It's in Lakeland, Florida, and it's the newest university which is solely focused on STEM. Its inaugural class is getting a tuition-free education. Research shows these graduates have very promising job prospects, and Team 6 education reporter Ari Odzer's back. He says Florida's school leaders are also hoping these students get passionate about STEM very early on.
Make sure your goggles are on as you make it back to your station.
It's Science Camp at American Heritage School, an effort to get kids excited about STEM fields.
By the time they get to 7th grade, 8th grade, 9th grade, if they're not engaged in science, if they haven't worked with science, they don't get it.
Getting kids inspired to get interested in science and technology is half the battle, and the best way to do that might be to get them involved with hands-on projects like these Lego robots. There's a reason schools like South Broward High are pushing kids into STEM. That's where the jobs are.
There's a shortage in the real world for technology employees. So by these kids learning at a young age and having fun with it, I think the hope is that the Googles, the AT&Ts, the Microsofts of the world will have an entire workforce ready for them.
When I graduate in 2 years, I'm not particularly concerned with getting a job. It's what job I'm going to get.
Alexandra Zaya is majoring in aerospace engineering at Georgia Tech and interning at Lockheed Martin. She says too many kids are afraid of STEM fields.
It's really not that hard. It's just a stigma in our society that math and science are these subjects that only geniuses are good at, and that's not true. Anybody can be good at math. You just have to put in the time.
Besides creating and designing things that can shape the future, STEM grads earn about $15,000 more right out of college compared to graduates in other disciplines. And STEM is not just about learning to fly drones or write code. Yale graduate Hasib Nasirullah says his science success at American Heritage led to much more.
Going to state science fair, symposiums, and presenting research that I did, the communication skills I learned, those were really, really key, and something that no matter what you go into later on in life are really important.
In other words, the best scientists are the ones who can effectively communicate their ideas and stick the landing. Ari Odzer, NBC6, South Florida.
You know, if you want to get kids passionate about something, tell them you're going to earn more money. That's a pretty good pitch.
That will do it.
Yeah.
Coming up next, how some families are tapping into free tutoring. Struggling with homework? Great help can just be a click away. Free online educational tools every family needs to know about.
You have to think a little bit deeper in a more complex way to provide the answer. Whole different
School Superintendent Alberto Carvalho tells us what changes students can expect on the state assessment test that's replacing the FCAT. It's next.
But first, can you answer this question? The base and height of a triangle are each equal to the side length of a square. How does the area of the triangle relate to the area of the square? We'll give you a few seconds to think about it. This is a 6th grade practice question. It comes from the new Florida Standards Assessment. And the answer is, the area of the triangle is half the area of the square.
And here's your final test question this evening. This is from the practice exam from the Florida Standards Assessment Test. Consider the equation D divided by 3 equals 12 remainder 2. What is the dividend D? It's a 4th grade question. I'll give you some time to think about it because it's certainly pretty difficult. Tough math question here. All right, that enough time? Did you know the answer? If you said 38, that means you got it right. Some very difficult stuff right there. And here to talk about this new test is Dr. Alberto Carvalho, the superintendent of Miami-Dade County Schools. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Appreciate the opportunity.
You know, this test, we have been told it's harder. And for the parents out there, for the students, for the teachers, what is it about the test that will make it tougher than the FCAT was?
Well, for a long time, Adam, the concept of standards and assessment relied on memorization and then repetition. Concentrate on a body of information, memorize it, and then repeat it whenever asked. The new assessment is different because it concentrates on students actually understanding key concepts and being able to apply those key concepts in real-life situations with variance. So the example that you just provided ordinarily would have been, okay, what number divided by X gives you 12? And students would have simply divided and come up with 36.
And you can memorize tables to figure that out. Right.
Here, it's asking you to go one step further. It's saying with a remainder of 2. So you have to think a little bit deeper in a more complex way to provide the answer.
Yeah.
So the whole difference is between memorization, repetition versus understanding and applying the information in a variety of different scenarios.
So for parents out there, day to day, when students are bringing work home and they're bringing practice exams home, how will they see a difference? I know one thing that's mentioned is students are going to be encouraged to read more nonfiction as opposed to fiction.
That's correct. So one of the transitions is that, yes, we're going to continue to value fiction, but the new standards require more technical reading as well. And readings that may be shorter in nature, but more real-life scenario-based, requiring application to real-life situations. So, and I want to be clear about this. We all love literature. We're not abandoning novel reading. There's just more incorporation of factual, real-life, contextually relevant information that is more reflective of the new college and career readiness that's expected of students.
All right, you know, schools, of course, measured, graded by the results of the test. Teachers' performance now measured as well. And yet, teachers haven't seen the full test yet. So what would you say to someone who says, is it fair to the teachers that that's going to be something that affects their performance when we still don't know the full test yet?
Well, that's an issue that's very sensitive with me. I've been an outspoken critic of the process that the state has engaged in. Number one, in a selection of the entity that's designing the exam. It was rushed. I don't think there was sufficient transparency. Secondly, the fact that this new entity is constructing an exam but does not have the opportunity to field test the exam itself in the state of Florida. Because there is no exam yet. They are field testing, analyzing the impact of those questions for bias with students in Utah. Now, to me, that's pretty ridiculous. The demographic profile of Utah's kids is very different from the demographic profile of Florida's kids, particularly in a very diverse community like South Florida is. So do I believe that the exam that is yet to be seen will have full reliability and validity? I don't think so. And that is a concern of mine, teachers, principals, and communities alike across the state, and at some point, the concern of parents.
All right, we have a million more questions for Dr. Carvalho. The good news is we're out of time on TV, but we have more to talk about on social media, and we'll give you a chance to ask anything you'd like. You're going to stick around, right, for our live social media chat. Go to NBC6's Facebook page. You can also find us on Twitter and ask questions at NBC6. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, it's not just curriculum that's evolving. Many South Florida students are seeing changes in the way their schools look and literally feel. Miami-Dade School District is 2 years into a $1.2 billion spending program. For schools like Highland Oaks Elementary, the bond money means getting the very latest generation of smartboards. The funds are being used district-wide to fix air conditioners and pay for renovations. At this school, it meant a new paint job and lighting, as well as windows and doors that are hurricane-resistant. 147 projects are underway now. District officials say renovations are on schedule and should be complete in about 5 years.
Now, Broward district leaders say it's critical that their schools get an infusion of cash, too. Dozens of schools are dealing with things like leaky roofs and outdated technology.
And this fall, county residents will be asked to vote on a bond that would make improvements to the safety and security of schools. Team 6 education reporter Ari Odzer explains what that money would mean.
What you're seeing is a day when it rains here at Northeast High School.
When it rains, it pours at Northeast High School in Oakland Park. Administrators shot this video. Hallways flooded 5 inches deep, rain dripping onto the basketball court, which isn't surprising since the home of the Hurricanes has been covered by a tarp since Hurricane Wilma in 2005.
I can't imagine it being much worse.
Northeast has 1,800 students using a building which should have been torn down and replaced years ago. Principal Jonathan Williams took us on a tour.
I don't think the children should have to come to school and worry about the condition of the facility.
The roof leaks in dozens of places. The floors are warping. There's exposed wiring. Some days there's no air conditioning. The locker room doesn't have AC at all. The place is a dump.
It's frustrating, and the children deserve better.
See where my red arrow is?
They're using outdated 8-year-old computers, and only 10 classrooms have smart boards. Williams says Northeast is a perfect example of why voters should pass the $800 million school bond issue. These two classrooms are separated by a thin plywood wall, but despite everything you've seen here at Northeast High School, it won't be enough to persuade some voters because Broward County Public Schools under the previous administration has a history, according to the grand jury, of wasting money on construction projects.
We've made a tremendous amount of reforms to ensure that when we get these dollars, we're going to execute them well.
Superintendent Robert Runcie says the district has learned from the 2011 scandal. Williams says it's time to get over the past and invest in our kids.
We're inheriting a bad situation, but that doesn't change the fact that children need to be educated.
And they shouldn't have to slosh through a flood to get to class. In Oakland Park, Ari Odzer, NBC6, South Florida.
No, nobody wants that. Nobody wants to waste money. The Superintendent Runcie there, says if voters approve this proposal, it'll cost the average Broward homeowner about $50 more per year.
Coming up next, high school students saving big on the cost of college by taking free online courses before they graduate. We'll be right back. Your child needs homework help, but you can't figure out the right answer. So stop stressing. There are many more resources now that can help with those tough assignments and even get kids ahead.
Yeah, I know that's a common issue, and Team 6 education reporter Ari Odzer has the tools that all families need to know for a promising school year.
There are many avenues to success in school, but there's no one-size-fits-all strategy because every child and every family is different. Need help with homework, falling behind, or are regular classes holding your child back? We have solutions to these common problems.
So yesterday, we worked on...
Jackie is working on her writing skills with a tutor who comes to her house twice a week for $50 an hour.
When sand beaches burn.
Jackie's mom said she had to do something to raise her daughter's reading level after she fell behind in school.
And it's a lot, you know. It's a lot for her and it's a lot for the parents, but You gotta do what you gotta do just to bring them forward.
Private tutors, no question, can fill in the gaps when a child fails to master a skill in class.
Teachers have more to do these days than just work on skills with their children. And they're no longer able to use the creativity that maybe they used to use in the past.
Obviously, most parents can't afford private tutoring, but free homework help is available.
Knowledgeable. They separated it into syllables.
These kids are learning at a Broward County Public Library. It's a free after-school program with real teachers. Students from K to 12 get a snack, computer access, supplies, whatever they need.
They can depend on having internet access. They don't have to worry about pencils, paper, erasers, and there's someone who's going to actually look at their homework to determine if they're doing it right.
In Miami-Dade, the Children's Trust charity sponsors hundreds of after-school programs all across the county.
Point A does correspond to this point right over here. So if we
There's also tons of no-cost online help, such as khanacademy.org. And speaking of free options, here's a tip to get ahead.
I'm just struggling on order of operations.
Stephanie Gonzalez is a high school junior taking several classes online through Florida Virtual School. That way she can take more classes at her regular school.
Do you remember the acronym that we use? I want to get ahead because I have certain goals I want to reach. I do eventually want to get college credits out of the way because it would be such a great way to alleviate the cost for my parents.
Florida Virtual School is open 24/7. Teachers are available by phone or text or email 7 days a week. And classes go at the student's pace. It's an option for a striver or a struggler.
We want them to master the content. So if it takes them longer to finish the course, that's what we want them to do.
And one more tip that can make a huge difference. Parents, get involved. Meet with your child's teachers, counselors, even the principal to come up with an action plan, an academic path to maximize your child's potential to succeed. Jackie and Adam?
Wow, that's a great opportunity for students.
It really is. Didn't know a lot about that stuff, and it's really also important to ask your teacher about extra help that the school might provide, because a lot of them do have tutoring programs after school that a lot of people don't know about, and Ari's one to trust. He's got some very young, smart students of his own in his household.
That's right, and you know, many people have computers in their home nowadays, so that's an easy way for your kids to be able to understand things when they don't get it, or move ahead like she's doing.
And they love technology, too. You know, the children are so good with it. The virtual school is a great option.
It is a great option. Well, you can connect to all of these programs, online tools, and so much more at NBC6.com. Just check out your Education on 6 section.
And do not forget our online chat happening right now with Superintendent Carvalho. This is a great opportunity.
It is.
I mean, very rare opportunity. He is very informed. He knows what he's talking about. So you can go to NBC6's Facebook page. You can also find us on Twitter at NBC6 and join that conversation and ask questions to Superintendent Carvalho.
Great opportunity to ask some tough questions from the superintendent.
And he'll answer.
Take advantage of it.
He will.
Thank you so much for joining us. We wish your family a very successful school year.